request of Teenage Engineering, I was asked to explain how I was able to use the OB-4 as a creative tool during my performance at their showroom in Shanghai. They offered to send this over if I could use it in a creative way in their showroom, and I thought, yeah, why not? I was really interested in this thing at first because of all the extra little functions it has beyond just being a Bluetooth speaker, and I really put them down on paper and tried to figure out how could you actually use the functions of this during a performance. I'm a big fan of a lot of the bells and whistles on this thing. You know, I live in Shanghai, so I do get a taste of the Buddha boxes wherever we are. So having the karma functionality is something I'd use a little bit more than most people probably would. But between the looping and the ambient mode, I mean, there's quite a few things in here I like, and I want to explain to you a few different ways you can go about using them. So there's 3 practical uses of the extra functions that I've found reliable enough to integrate into my show during a live performance in a small venue so that this can be reasonably heard. So in this video, I'm going to cover those 3 things. The first is just some basic DJ effects using the loop and the kind of the slip functionality of the slide. I'll be using the Magic Tape's scrubbing and playback speed to slow a previous recording and then play on top of it. And then I'll finish up using the ambient mode just to affect an incoming signal via line-in. So when I first went to the new showroom in Shanghai, the host of the showroom, a venue called Drive Pro, he was more of a DJ. He was more interested in DJing than music. Now, he wasn't very familiar with how DJ worked, but he sure knew how it sounded. And I saw him trying to use the loop function in conjunction with the tape to kind of scratch. It sounded something like this. Clearly, it didn't quite work. It was very, very difficult to do. And he asked me, how would I do this? How could I use the OB-4 to kind of DJ, to scratch, and to ideally stay in time with the recording? The answer is, you can't. Now, forgive me, I'm not a DJ, so I may be butchering this, but here's DJing 101. A typical DJ setup involves multiple decks, different sound sources. So let's say our song is playing back on the right side, on deck number 2. If we scratch this track, it loses its rhythm. We lose our downbeat, and that makes it difficult to dance to. The scratch is actually on the first deck. It's usually a very short sample. And in order to scratch, we would, in quick succession, switch from deck 2 to 1 and perform the scratch on the other deck. That way, the beat never loses its rhythm. As I'm making it very clear here, I never really do this. I'm not a scratch DJ, but this is how scratch DJing works. It requires at least 2 sound sources. The OB-4 doesn't have this function. However, if we were to play a scratch sample, in theory, we could use the Magic Tape to sort of play through that scratch. If you have your music coming out of a different device through a different speaker, well, then you can sort of make it work. Play back a scratch sample via the line-in Bluetooth, and then hold the playback still so it doesn't move. Now, as the backing tracks, we mute its audio and perform a little scratch setup. Yeah, so that's not ideal. I don't actually suggest trying to do this on stage, but if you did want to scratch using the wheel, this is probably how you do it. The real DJ effects capability of the OB-4 is in the looper. So if we were to loop a section of the same song, we'd hold both buttons together and capture a short part of the song, ideally in time. Now, assuming that there's enough time in the audio buffer, we can use the slide function to go back and forth. And it will always stay in time. If you do it with some rhythm, you can create some interesting performance effect. Of course, we can shorten the length of that loop. And that length is reflected again by the slide functionality. Doing this on its own, well, it's neat, but it might get a little repetitive. This sort of functionality works great with the radio. If you loop in live time as a backing track is going, you can come up with some pretty funky sounds. And at any time, we can just end the loop and play the song from there. So this one is for the instrumentalists out there. I have this zither. This is in the key of C. You can tune it, but it's kind of a bitch to do so. And then I also have this shell. This shell is in the key of E. These two instruments are never able to play at the same time, at least more than one or two notes, unless I were to tune the guzheng, but again, I don't really want to do that. So I wondered, if I were to play something in guzheng and then play it back using the OB-4's magic tape and slow it down, could I get it to be in key with this thing? And I did. This was the sequence of events during my performance that allowed me to do that. So I had the backing track going to another speaker, and the OB-4 is only playing back the sound of the guzheng. During the performance, I used a CM15, a condenser microphone, and the volume was sufficient. Then, once the song finished, I set the OB-4 to play backwards. Instead of manually scrubbing through that time, I just set it to play at full speed reverse. And I went about 3 minutes back into my audio buffer and listened back to the guzheng performance. I figured if I slow it down to 0.6 speed, the guzheng will change its pitch to something that works with the flute. The sound was a little dry because I wasn't using any FX pedals, but I found that the effect was very, very prominent. And then I simply played the flute acoustically on top. It's quirky, you know, it's definitely not ideal. But the thing about doing this is that the audience understood exactly what happened. You know, they heard the rewind sound. They get the idea that, like, is he playing fast? Is he rewinding? And then when the song plays back, they hear the little melodies that I played the first time around. They recognize that it's playing back what I just played 3 or 4 minutes ago. So I made it very obvious. And then when I slowed down the track, that's also very, very clear because you can hear the pitch go down. So it was cool. It was kind of like I had a duet with myself from like 5 minutes ago. You know, it's just a neat little party trick that it definitely had people asking me after the show, how did you do that? What was that? So, you know, pretty niche stuff, kind of for geeks, but it's pretty nice to just hear back like a temporary recording and then be able to play along with it. I mean, there's a certain kind of charm to it you may not expect. And lastly, we have the ambient mode. So I'm a bit spoiled. I'm a huge fan of Eventide's, you know, space, their black hole and their shimmer verb, and I recently got a hologram microcosm, so I'm pretty spoiled when it comes to really nice, highly detailed and controllable reverb. But it was a small setup, and the ambient mode is already built into the thing, and this is my main speaker, so I figured, why not try out the ambient for a live show? So I'm going to finish out this video with the ambient mode on the OB-4 and this shell. So I hope you found something you liked today. I hope you're interested in what the OB-4 can do for you now that you've got one. So thanks for watching.